Next up, we have a panel discussion, and I believe it will be moderated by Manon Rouillier, the founder of podcast Minier. Please welcome Manon.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here for the power panel with these wonderful ladies. So this morning, we're going to talk about leadership and transformation in an industry that powers the world, the mining industry, obviously. 2 weeks ago, Angelina talked about a book in our prep talk. She mentioned a book called Material World by Ed Conway. Has anybody read this book by Sheila? Great, one, and you. I didn't finish it, though. And this book tells the story about 6 raw materials that shaped modern civilization. We're talking about sand, salt, oil, iron, copper, and lithium. And the author makes a good point in the book where he says, we don't even know, even myself, because I did read a few parts of the book, and I'm like, I didn't know about sand and salt. And so if I was born in the mining industry, we all work in the mining industry, and there's a few stuff I didn't know where it comes from. Imagine the communities, how they don't know where it comes from. So that got me thinking that if raw material build the world we live in today, then it is the people, their ideas, creativity, and leadership that will shape the world we leave behind. So as women, as leaders, as board members, as investors, what role do we play in shaping the world, and what role do we play in giving mining its purpose to its communities and to its future? So, to go on with this discussion, I would like to introduce, this is the hardest part for me, saying right your name. So I will introduce my 3 panelists, Sheila Risbud, Senior Vice President, Corporate Affairs for Glencore, Canada, Angelina, Mehta, Vice President, Health, Safety, Environment, Communities, Aluminum for Rio Tinto, and Dr. Nicole Adshead-Bell, Director at Cupel Advisory Corp. But Nicole, we can call her Nikki. So I will not be impolite. So the industry faces many challenges. We did talk about it. We have talent crisis, reputation problems, and most of all, we have pressure to change. So in regards to these challenges, from where you stand today, what kind of leadership does the mining industry most need right now? And I will start with you, Sheila.
Thank you very much, Manon. For me, when you think about the issues that we face today, they're a lot more complex than they were 20 years ago. And I think leaders today really need to be open to other perspectives and have the awareness to know when they don't have those perspectives around the table. So I think too often we surround ourselves by people who think and act like us, and we forget the importance of having that challenging function around the table. And so to me, a true leader needs to remember that he or she has one mouth and 2 ears. So really needs to listen to who's around, but also make sure that the people around the table are able to really challenge thinking.
Nikki, would you go on?
What she said. No, I think you touched on it, and I think the biggest challenge that our sector faces, it is one of reputation. And that's because nobody knows where their stuff comes from. And so my sister, she's not mining. She's been corrupted by her family that is, but she said it, I think, the best, which was, you can choose to be a vegan, but you can't choose not to be associated with the products of mining. And so leaders today, in fact, I would encourage all of us, kind of a call to metaphoric arms, is that we need to be out there and promulgating that life as we know it, the bedrock of life as we know it, no pun intended, is from the products of mining. So leaders need to be able to communicate effectively. They need to engage with audiences of all types and sizes, from regulators to the average person on the street, to governments, and be able to espouse in a way that's palatable to the other side, I suppose, what it is that we do. And I suppose if I look at what I think are the key qualities in a leader, it's surround yourself by the best people that you possibly can with the resources at hand. Listen to them and allow them to do their job. And also, maybe this is probably something that's not discussed enough. It's not just hiring the right people, but it's also firing the wrong people and creating an organisation that allows discussion. Ray Dalio said it best, but to encourage different ideas and allow people to have a voice, because it's through challenging and I would say respectfully challenging people's ideas that you come up with the best solution possible. And I'll be quiet.
Angelina?
I think we've said most of it. I do love that you started with Material World, because I think that I have never personally felt more relevant in the career that I chose over 30 years ago and the work that I do today in terms of making an impact on the world. So leaders today, Daniela opened us up beautifully this morning when she talked about the challenges, the leadership, and how we take that forward. When we talk about listening and being open to diverse ideas, for me, leadership means the collaboration, the partnerships that we need to have the humility to recognize and to embark upon. We can't do it all. We need to understand where our places of strength are and then bring in the folks that complement that. I also think, and just have been almost 8 months into this role as HSEC, which has opened my eyes. I think all of us as leaders talk about health, safety, and environment, but don't understand the actual depth and complexity and the talent of the people that actually make our projects happen. So I think leaders need to, again, have that humility to look through that ESG lens. And maybe I'll stop there.
You did talk a bit about it, Nikki, but there's a gap between how the industry sees itself and how the public perceives it. It's all about the reputation, the pressure to change. So you did answer a bit of that question, but I will ask the other ladies, and maybe you can come back afterwards. But as leaders, how can we help mining industry tell a story that's grounded in reality and in connection with its community? So I don't know who wants to go first.
I can kick us off.
Go ahead.
So when I think about our story and our reputation, I think about how we try to remedy the past, and I think that's maybe a challenge. Again, coming from a place of humility, we need to acknowledge that it happened, and we haven't always been, we didn't consider communities and even the environment in the way that we should. Even Rio Tinto has a history in Canada, particularly in BC, that we acknowledge, and we need to honor the past. And the things that we do moving forward are in the spirit of relationships. We have a program called Local Voices, which is where we engage communities in the areas where we work. That is super transparent. It's all available online, and what it does is gives us real insight into what the communities feel and how they rank us. And that metric is now included in our STIP as senior manager. So that's our commitment to telling our story in a way that engages the communities we work with.
That's great.
I have a bit of a personal example. So despite having worked in mining for the better part of my career, I have a son who's a mechanical engineer and has been working for a few years. He works for a renewable energy company, and he won't work in mining. And despite having a mother who's passionate about mining, he won't work in mining because he says, "Mom, I want to make a difference and I want to contribute to a low carbon future." And so I think we've failed to make our younger generation make that link between mining and how it can be part of a low carbon future, or how it can be part of a sustainable future. And that's where I think we need to do more work.
I think we should hire a millennial. They understand how to communicate probably more effectively than we do to a wider range of social media platforms. I think we are not proactive at all in controlling our message. We're reactive. The leaders of our industry don't actually lead with communicating what it is we do and how valuable that we are. I would say, particularly in recent years, I actually think the mining industry in general does a very, very good job in terms of creating a lot of opportunities. I think that we try to be very good environmental citizens. I mean, an example that I can think of is even exploration companies who really have limited excess cash going into West Africa, for example, and dealing with local communities, and they're the first entrants, and building a well for a small village and how life-changing something as simple as that is. We don't talk about this. We don't talk about the multiplier effect. We don't talk about the economic benefits that accrue. Whereas you compare us, for example, to Amazon, I would say that the mining industry would compare much, much more favorably than Amazon coming in and building a distribution center, paying low-paid jobs, not investing into the communities that they're part of, people on very uncertain benefits, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that in some ways the mining industry, because we have to be, we can't move our widget factory when things go wrong. I think that we have been early movers in what's now called ESG, but used to be called community relations and sustainability. But again, we don't talk about and publicize what it is that we do in a positive light. I actually think we're really hard on ourselves. Is there more to be done? Yes. Is there more than we can do? Yes. Can we always improve? Yes. But we also need to be proud. I mean, I'm proud of working in an industry that it creates the fundamentals and produces the fundamentals of life that as we know it. But let's actually get out there and manage the messaging rather than letting the messaging manage us.
I think to bring we talked about the new generation, and we want to bring them to the table to work with in the mining industry. But we do tell a good story. It's even better, and we do campaigns. And I have a communication agency, so we do put out there great stories, great campaigns. But I think there's not enough models out there, so that the younger generation can look at this woman, this man, and say, "Oh, I want to be this person." I think it's a missing link, that we don't have enough models, enough stories to tell, like the three of you that are here. So we're lucky we were given a mic, but we're still talking to people from the industry. Oh, yeah. So I think this story needs to come out. It needs to come out to other industries, to schools, and I don't know. It's not a question, it's a comment, but maybe you can, I see we have enough time, so you can.
Yeah, the TikTok generation, for example, is there anybody who's well known in mining? Apparently, I'm not on TikTok, so this is hearsay, but he's very, very popular, and he's an oil and gas guy, and what he does is every day he gets and talks about the impact of oil and gas, and he's an American, so it's obviously biased towards that audience, but talks about what do movements in oil and gas prices mean for you and how it weaves its way through the system. And he apparently is enormously popular on TikTok with a younger generation, and so what he's doing is taking a complex topic, but talking about it in a way and he's a 65-year-old dude that's managed to understand how to communicate effectively to a very wide-ranging audience. And so I think there's just little things that we can be doing every day. One of the most popular shows apparently on TV, a reality TV show, is about placer mining for gold in Alaska. So this is a fascinating industry where we have mines in almost every country of the world. It's different cultures, it's different places. There's so many elements that we could be, again, I think it comes down to communication and being proactive about it, be talking about. So we just have to do it, stop talking about it.
And you talked about TikTok and social media and how to bring our story more out there, but I think that we tell the story from a corporate level rather than from a person level. And if we start doing it more as a person level, we'll need to accept that there's imperfection within the people. And it's okay, but I think that we're not there yet. I can't believe I have a mic here and speak, because I'm not perfect, that's for sure. But I mean, we need people to go out there, tell their story, and we need to accept that they're not perfect, but they still will be representing our industry.
Well, perfection means it equals inauthenticity, and people are very good as a species of reacting to inauthentic behavior, and so I think imperfection makes it real. It's a positive.
Maybe if I could just add one, I can't remember who I was having this discussion with last night, but part of our reluctance to speak when things are out of control is that we're not used to this environment that we're in now, right? For the first time in history, many things are not in our control, including our license to operate, including climate change. including the geopolitical context. So speaking in a forum or in a vortex of so many things, there are so many variables that we don't have in our control is difficult, right? And we don't want to screw up, and we don't want to cause our share price to go down. So we need to rethink how we communicate in situations where we're not just asserting everything's under control.
Yeah. Sheila, on our prep talk, we did talk about how it could, sometimes when we go at a sea-level, there's not a lot of people without a technical background, a STEM background. STEM?
Yep.
STEM?
Yep.
STEM, it's in French, right?
STEM.
A STEM background, and we did talk about, like, I know you two ladies do have that technical background, and that's what you were mentioning. Maybe if we did have that diversity at the C-level positions where we have people from other areas, perhaps we could make other type of decisions. I think that could be a great topic you could go on with.
Sure, and I mean, I guess it gets back to the point around making sure that you surround yourself with different perspectives. And so, you know, we talk about diversity, but for me, diversity is diversity of thought. So making sure that you have people who think differently and have been maybe trained to think differently around the table. And I'm actually really excited because at this event, there's a student program going on, and they've brought students together from all sorts of different backgrounds, which is what I actually think mining needs in the future. And so making sure that around that C-suite table, you don't have just engineers or just accountants or lawyers. Like you need that mix and that ability to question and see the world in a different way.
Yeah, if I could just might say, so similar reviews, Sheila, in terms of needing that diversity of thought. When I think about how we integrate diversity into strategy, it comes out to me in terms of a reflection of the communities that we work in. I made this comment when we were chatting to prepare. If you are running a mine in Papua New Guinea and a bunch of Australian men show up as the folks that are leading the conversation and the decisions that are happening, how does the community connect to that, right? I think there's an issue there that we need to be really open about understanding. And again, when I think about and I'm technical, right? I have an engineering degree and a finance degree, so I can't speak to those that don't have those. However, I attended the Rio Tinto AGM a few weeks ago in Perth, and I'm going to say 80% of the questions, and this is all publicly recorded and available, were about ESG. They were about our Indigenous relationships. They were about our communities. So yes, somebody asked about our dividend policy, but the majority of our conversation was about the non-technical issues of how we interface, and that is what's driving our value.
Well, the Aussies getting picked on again.
Not you, Nikki.
No, I think, again, it comes down to, and I think you make a very good point, is we do, and I've observed it as well, and it causes enormous problems, is when you go into another country and another culture, is you need to have people to, really it's also demonstrating respect. You need to have people in all levels of your company and from very high level decision-making levels as well that speak the language, that understand the culture, that understand the regulatory environment, understand the communities that they work within. And sometimes what you see in our industry when people have issues, particularly community relation issues, and they'll often blame the country rather than their management of their business within that country. And so, Sheila, you made a very good point. Diversity, it's about diversity of expertise, experience, etc. I'm going to do a plug for geos because I am a geologist, and geologists, we are the foundation of the mining industry. I'm just going to say that. Without us, everything else ceases to exist, and we are very, very underpaid and underappreciated. So that needs to change. But moving on.
I'm laughing. That's me. There was a question we weren't sure we wanted to talk about because it was a subject last year, and we do often talk about the place of women on boards. It's not something we wanted that much to address. I'm still addressing it. But it's more about the inclusion. Over the past decade, a few women joined board of directors. Yeah, board of directors. And it was a lot about checking boxes. And then we talked about it in our prep talk, and we said, well, it's not about checking boxes, but it's about true inclusion for women, for diversity on board members, and how do we get this true inclusion? How do we come around it? So that was my question. But what I wanted to say is that I know you didn't agree, but the stats are saying something different that you thought, is that in Africa and Middle East, representation of women on boards, it's 27.5%. And here in Canada and USA, it's 12%. Same in Australia, I think. And it's the same with the executive positions and executive position. And I do have the references to my stats, so I will send it to people who ask. But it's also at executive level. We have 31% in Africa and Middle East, where here it's 15%. So when we say that there are women on boards and women are there at C-level position, I don't think the stats are saying that right now. So to come back to my question, what would real inclusion look like on boards for women or in diversity? And comment my stats if you want to.
Yeah, well, I for one was surprised. That is mining, right? Or is that general?
No, it's mining.
It's mining. Yeah, no, I was surprised. So I've been on boards, I think, similar to Nikki, for more than a decade now. Definitely started off being the only one. Absolutely was a box-checking exercise at the time. And I know there's folks in the room that still believe that that's all it is. So we have a long way to go. But if I could compare that first board experience to where I am now, and this is very personal, and all of us have our own experiences, I do sit on Lundin Gold Board, where I am one of 4 women, and where our sustainability committee is only women. And we're talking about executives from Newmont, executives from Rio, and senior leaders in the ESG space. So it's been an amazing journey over 10 years. And so again, when I think about how do we represent the communities that we work in, not just in the executive, but on the board, so that we're making decisions that reflect the values of where we do work, that's the importance of the diversity. The evolution is not fast enough. And I think we're also a self-fulfilling prophecy. When we think about what our board necessarily, historically, should be composed of, traditionally was just CEOs. And I think by doing the box-checking exercise, we've come to understand that the women that we've been bringing onto boards have actually demonstrated enough value that we've changed the composition and actually the requirements now for boards to make good decisions. And maybe I'll stop there.
Sheila, you wanted to add something?
I mean, I think for me, it comes down to, again, diversity of thought. So like if adding more women to boards helps with that diversity of thought, then I think that's worth doing. And if it's a box checking exercise, I'm actually okay with the box checking exercise, because I think with time, it's how you add that diversity of thought. But that's my view.
Yeah, my experience was similar to yours over a decade ago, but it was kind of amusing in some ways, because the mining industry suddenly went, we need one of those, where are they? And was very, very desperate, and that was really being pushed at where it was, if you don't have a woman on a board, it's explained. I personally don't believe in quotas. I think that's very unhelpful, and that results in tokenism, and it's not helpful for the group that you're trying to support. So I think sometimes we attack these lack of diversity in quotation marks problems with a hammer, and they need a little bit more of a subtle approach. But it has been it's been a very, very big change. I would say when I look at the mining industry and look at boards, and I don't think this is necessarily a good thing, is you're seeing, particularly with some very large companies, with only 1 or 2 people that have mining industry expertise on the board. And I think that's a concern. I think we have a very complex industry, and I think having outside perspective is incredibly valuable. But at the end of the day, I think you need a core competency, and that's just not technical, but that's mining sector expertise and experience. Because if you don't know if you don't even know the questions to ask, and that means you probably don't know what the answers are. And sometimes I think some of these larger problems. So we've kind of seen this big shift in a way that I think we need to go back to having core mining industry expertise with outside voices that play their part and play a very, very valuable part. And it's expertise as both Angelina and Sheila have pointed out, is the biggest challenge we face. It's reputation around community management in Indigenous population, it's environmental. And so those discussions need to be happening very, very proactively at the board level and getting ahead of some of these, these problems that have occurred in the sector that I think were very, very preventable, and why were they not being discussed? So for me, it's been able to create an environment on boards, and I think we've all experienced this, where you feel like you can voice an opinion, and that you can have disagreements. I think disagreements, that's a positive thing. A healthy friction is a great way to get to probably the better solution, is having that debate and allowing people to have a voice.
I have one last question, which is more a personal question for you ladies. It's a question I ask every time I'm on a panel or I meet women like yourselves. What was your pivotal moment when you decided, I'm going to take a mic, I'm going to say yes to come to this type of panel, I'm going to speak up in the industry? What was that pivotal moment? Maybe Sheila, if you want to start.
Sure. Well, before having this role, I worked for Tech Resources, and I was Vice President of Sustainable Development for our steelmaking coal mines in BC. And I remember when I took the role, it was my first VP role, and I had to do a lot of public speaking. I had a team of 500 people. I had to get up in front of a large room of folks, and it made me very, very nervous, and I didn't like doing it. But at one of the events, one of the first town halls we did, I had two young women come up to me, and they were both co-op students, engineering students. And they said, we look across the company, and speaking specifically about the coal division, we don't see any women leaders, and having you up there gives us hope. And then I realized, okay, as much as I hate getting up in front of a mic and having to address a large room, I need to do it because people need to see people like me in positions of senior power so that they can have hope that they too one day can see a path for themselves. So that was sort of my aha moment.
And thank you for doing it. Nikki?
I don't have an aha moment.
You were born this way?
No, I could be accused of talking too much and too frequently. I'm probably overly comfortable culturally and personality-wise with sharing my opinion. I would say, though, that sometimes I always try and do the right thing. And it's my observation that sometimes trying to do the right thing can be very harmful. Career-wise, people don't necessarily want differing on the subject of a differing point of view, and so life would probably be easier if I spoke out a little bit less, but that's unlikely to change, unfortunately.
We need your voice.
We do.
Just like we need many other voices that we don't actually hear often enough. And my experience was similar to Sheila's. It was maybe a series of smaller aha moments leading up to my current role. So I joined the Board of Women in Mining Canada over 10 years ago, and the organization has evolved enormously since then, and just so proud of what they accomplished. But for me, it was the first time that I was immersing myself in a community of women in this industry, and that was a wake-up for me because I just hadn't before, and I didn't realize the value of that. And so that for me was the start of the journey. And then similar to you, Sheila, being in a very senior role at Rio Tinto and having people come and talk to me, both young men, but mostly young women, about their issues was for me a huge moment where I felt I have a huge responsibility to deliver against this role modeling that I'm doing, right? So if it is going to be possible for everyone, I have some paths to clear to make that happen. And so this is our responsibility now. It's not just my own personal journey in this career.
That was the end, and it's a perfect ending, and I think it is all our responsibilities. So thank you for being at this power panel. Thank you to the panelists. You guys did a wonderful job. And we're 1 minute early.
Well done.
Excellent.
Let's go.
Where's our exit music?
Thank you all. Very insightful discussion.